Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Hands-on SAP Dev with me, DJ Q Macro. Here again, Friday morning my time, but good evening, good night. First of all, I've got to say, Anand is saying good morning from Philadelphia. What time is it in Philadelphia? But it's 3 a.m. 3 a.m. or something crazy. So thank you for joining from Philadelphia. Good morning also to Dora the Future, who was on earlier and said he was tutto pronto para aprender, all ready for learning. So that's great. I think that's a great attitude to have. Vizes, good morning to you in Bangkok, Thailand. Good afternoon to you. Sorry, I'm glad you're able to join the live session. And what does it say here? I've got two chats. I've got chats on the main screen and got chat down here as well. I'm going to sit down here. You said that you're unable to join live session after missed part 12 due to my personal work. Well, I hope you managed to catch up okay, and welcome back, Visas. Antonio, good morning to you in Madrid. And Ulrich, good morning to you. And Nitesh, good morning to you. Good afternoon to you in India. Zahid, good morning to Zahid in sunny Solihull. It's very sunny here, actually. It is 3 a.m. 3 a.m. in the morning, a little bit tautological, but anyway, sorry, what I'm saying is tautological, 3 a.m. in the morning, a.m. anti-meridian, before midday. Sudarshan, good morning to you in Waldorf, sunny Waldorf, and Jalok, good morning to you in Kenya, and buongiorno, Kazatis, and Karsten, good morning, Karsten, to you in Stuttgart. Fantastic, it's great to have you all. And Chiranjit, good morning to you in Eindhoven. Fantastic. It's great to have you all, and I've got my coffee. Moin, good morning, Helmut, a long-time friend of the channel, Helmut Tammen in Brunswick, Braunschweig in Germany. So, in fact, for those of you who are not aware, Helmut, remind me if I forget, it'd be worth showcasing your Saptodon bot. Which is really cool. Which will also encourage people to come over to the Fediverse if you're into micro tweets or toots, or what's the thing? I can't remember. Anyway, what's the micro posts? I don't know. Anyway, yeah. So Helmut has put together a really cool little bot that will tweet out, or toot out rather, on Mastodon and the Fediverse new versions of packages such as SAP's CAP package CDSDK. Toot, yes, toot, thank you. I've got my coffee here. It's quite bitter. I've made it a bit too strong. It's my second coffee as well, so if I go a bit crazy, that's the reason why. So Romil, hi DJ, very excited for today's session. This series is more excited to watch than any Netflix series. Yes, I'll take that. Thank you, Romil. Thank you, Romil. I will try and make it as exciting as we can. In fact, let me jump to the main, where are we? The main scene. In fact, yeah, let me go. Let me jump to the main scene. And I was just browsing lobsters this morning while I was waiting to go live and everything. But here, as you know, SAP, go to SAP Devs. This is where, we've done this before, but this is where you can go and find the links to all the different things that we mention in any given episode. So here's the live stream, here's the YouTube thing, that's me, let's put pause, otherwise it's going to be a bit crazy. Marianne, good morning, sunny sunshine in Marianne's little message there as well, fantastic. So if you have a look at the description here, you'll see links to all resources shared in this episode are to be found in the comments here. I like the way, I did think hard about are to be found, because that is valid for before the live show goes out and after the live show has gone out. So Michael, good morning to you in the Schweiz, in Switzerland. Really appreciate your work. Thank you. Really appreciate you being here, Michael. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate everybody. So, and you can click on this thing here, and this will go to the sort of the event on the SAP community platform. And then I always add a little comment, and I've sort of preloaded this one with a few things that we probably want to have a look at. So, without further ado, we've got SAP Developer News. We don't need to go in that right now. There's an April, I think since we were together last time, the April release of CAP has come out. That is here, of course, April 2024, and there's lots of really juicy things. Maybe we'll try one, just because this episode 13, I'm not around next week. I'm on holiday on Friday next week. And the week after, I'm hosting, if I go here and go to SAP Developers, the week after, where is it? Upcoming live streams. So we have the wonderful Nora and Kevin on the 24th, so that's the week after next. So I'm not around next week, and the week after, the Friday, there's a Hands-on SAP Dev live stream, but it won't be on the Back to Basics. We're going to do a special episode on retrieval augmented generation, which is going to be really cool. And then after that, blah, 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 blah. So this is going to be the last episode for a couple of weeks at least. So, we'll have a little bit of a, end of term thing. We're going to continue the Back to Basics series, do not fear. So, yeah, anyway, DJ, stop talking. So that's that. And, oh, yes, so, yes, but now we can't live without DJ at Friday, says Dwight. Oh, that's very kind of you to say so. But too much of anything is not a good thing. So maybe you need a break from this stupid brain here. Nikhil, good day to you in Melbourne. Good evening. You have... Brilliant. I have a glass of wine before DJ asks. I was going to ask... Make sure you got a glass of wine. Got a glass of coffee. It's a little bit too early for wine here. Well, my grandpa used to say, it might be too late, but it's never too early. There we go. So, what we developer advocates have started to sort of dip our toe in the water with are YouTube Shorts. So you can, get your phone, get your mobile phone, your handy, as they call it in Germany, and look at things in portrait small phone format. And we've got a new little playlist. It's very, 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 very small at the moment. Just a couple of shorts. So we've got shorts on CAP Node.js, little good to know shorts. So check those out there. And finally, so just allow us to sort of dive into where we were before. Where we were before was we just started last week, right at the end, and we left on a cliffhanger. I think was it Red Cape said yes, what a cliffhanger, and we had some great input from the subscriber and also from a longtime friend of the channel, Matthias Lakemper, about what we should be doing. Okay, so I was trying to resist doing stuff. Raphael, good morning to you. Good morning, Raphael. So we'll come back to this in a second, where we were and what was going wrong and what was not working and everything. But the way we were testing what we were doing was we were making changes to the main JS. Remember that we've got our main CDS here, which is the super simple bookshop service with the 3 entities that we're exposing. That's sort of, less important now. What's more important now is that we have a main.js file in the same directory, right next to it, and it's got the same name, main. Just with a different extension, JS, and that then is automatically picked up by the CAP server, convention over configuration, to become, and that is sort of loaded as a module, and you're expected to provide, or this is how you would provide handlers, custom handlers, to replace or augment the default handlers that happen automatically for us for any sort of, CRUD style operations that come in, events that come in. Okay, we covered that last week. So as you can see, that's just a quick reminder. We've just got a few console logs here to sort of figure out what happens when and what gets called when. So I've literally, let's do that now here, clear. Let's just CDS watch, and we get here, hello world. We get that hello world from that console log there. And then also we get the I am in the anonymous function, which is just here. So this is inside this anonymous function that is exported from this module when it's loaded. Okay, so CAP server starts up, it sees the main.cds, it's starting serving the main.cds, and it says, oh yeah, I'm serving bookshop, which is in there. Let's just bring that there like that, right? Bookshop is my head at the top and my head at the bottom. So serving bookshop, path OData, that's the default path. Okay, you can change that if you want to. We've done that already in a previous episode. And then it says, oh yeah, I found an implementation, i.e. I found a custom implementation file, serve main.js, because of course the name convention, right? So that's why this is loaded. But of course we don't get the handling read of books written out to the console yet, because we haven't actually caused a read event to happen on the books entity, right? And so what I was doing was going over to this other terminal and saying curl silent, so we don't get that sort of, in fact, let me do it without the silent first, so you can see when I use silent what disappears. So curl local host 4004 OData v4 bookshop books, and pipe in the JQ as we always do because it looks nice. Okay, we'll do that, and what we get a number of things happening. So the reason why we get this is you get this by default in curl. So this is why I say clear -s or -- silent. All that does is suppress that sort of progress thing there. Okay, so you know about that already. And what we also see is, a log from the OData protocol handler, the standard handler to handle incoming OData requests. And of course, this is an OData query operation because we're asking for an entity set. Okay. And that causes the read event, that causes the read event to be fired inside the CAP server, which means that this anonymous function here that we've defined, literally the thing I've highlighted there, that handler, that callback in different terminology, gets called because a read event has been emitted because of the incoming OData query operation that's being handled by the OData part of the CAP server, right? And it's for the books entity, right? Now, just about where we finished last week was, okay, console log handling read of books, but we don't get any data. Okay, now, in order for us to more comfortably progress and hack around on this and have things be re-requested when we make changes to see what happens, what we could do is do a regular sort of, when this changes, so we can say list using the ENTR. We've used ENTR before, haven't we? We've used ENTR before. In fact, ENTR, there we go. Run arbitrary commands when files change. Let's add that to the thing here. I know we've done it before, but let's add it there as well. ENTR there. Okay, fine. Save that. Post. Okay. Where are we here? There we go. So we can say list serve anything. If we change anything in the serve directory, just files, ENTR clear screen, and because we want to put a pipe in the thing, we got to say send it as a string to bash and say curl -s local. I always type lolcat when I'm typing fast. Host 4004 OData v4 bookshop books pipe in JQ like that. Okay, so if I save that now, okay, that's fine. It's restarting. Okay, but sometimes, and this is generally, okay, sometimes the CAP server restart takes a few seconds, and this has already been triggered. This new request has already been triggered before the CAP server is restarted. So either you get the results of the call being handled by the old version before it's saved and restarted, or actually the call is made while the CAP server is restarting, okay? Because, these two things are independent, okay? So instead, what you could do is have a little sleep. So we could say here, for example, bash c sleep for semicolon and then run that, okay? Sleep, eat 1, 2, 3, 4, and then call it, okay? Yes, you could do that. However, what I thought was, this is a really cool circumstance where we can use something to do with the CAP server, which are called life cycle events. So the CAP server itself has a life cycle. You know, it starts up, it gets ready, it starts listening, and then it shuts down when you control C and everything. So what I've done is I've written a little blog post. I've just seen a question here. I'll answer that in a second, Raphael. I've written a little blog post. Did I put it in here already? Yes. Okay. Controlling automatic HTTP requests in CAP Node.js design time loops. Okay. So that's linked in this thing already. We won't go into this now. You can read this after the live stream. But basically, this tells you about life cycle events. And what we can do is use this bit of code here. It's really simple. If we say here, let's go into here and say new, paste that in and save that as server.js. So it's a well-known name, convention of configuration. So if you save a file called server.js, the CAP server itself will say, oh, there's a custom implementation to enhance myself, the server. So as you can see, it says here, loading server from file server. That's a new message. And what we've got here is really simple. We don't have to sort of stare at this stuff too long, but basically I'm loading. I wish those tooltips would go away. Good morning, Javier. Good morning to you in sunny Barcelona. I'm just using the promise version of the file system library in Node. And what I'm doing is I'm requiring SAP CDS, which gives me everything. This is this CDS facade. And then I can call an on to register a handler, which is here, there, for the listening event. The listening is a life cycle event, which is fired when the CAP server has started up and is ready to start listening for incoming requests with the OData protocol right now. So what we can then do is to say, I'll just write a file, an empty file called listening. So then what we can do is we can say, right now, where is it? Yeah, okay. So now, what we can do is we can say here, instead of listening to changes to stuff in the serve directory, we can literally listen out for changes to the listening file, right? And then, let's get rid of that. And then the enter will only trigger when the listening file is changed, and that's changed when basically the listening event is fired. So now we don't have to sleep. We don't have to worry that this will be called either too early or during the server startup and then it will fail. So now, and in fact what we can do as well, just to show us that, let's get it to print out the date as well, let's have date and time. Okay, let's do that. So 7/18/23, that's UTC time, I'm an hour ahead of that. But if I save that now, notice that this doesn't get fired straight away. It gets fired 10 seconds, a few seconds after. Do that again, save, 39. Okay, so now we've got a very, very comfortable way of having a request made again once we make some changes. Does that make sense? Put it in the chat if that makes sense. So Raphael says, God, that is very bitter, that coffee today. Is there a reason for providing the service name as a string instead of importing it by doing const books equals this entity? Brilliant, Raphael. There is the reason I'm using it this way. So Raphael is asking, why have we got this in as a string? Okay, what we could do is what Raphael says in the chat, which is to bring that in as an object from the entities. Okay, so, the only reason I'm not doing it that way is because I want to do that in a later episode. That's all. So great point, Raphael. And it's really nice to be able to do that, but I just want to keep it as simple as possible right now to sort of not distract from what we want to look at. Okay. So yeah, so we'll leave that for a future episode if that's all right with you. Okay, now we've got something that's listening on the listening, and will only rerun when we change this, and it'll rerun at the right time. Now let's start to have a look at what we did. What's happening at the moment is that we're getting no data. What happens if we comment that out? Okay, comment the registration of this anonymous function as the handler for the read request on books. Okay, let's save that. We get the data. Why do we get the data? Sunny, hello Sunny to you. We get the data. Why do we get the data? Because we're not registering a function, a handler function for the on event. We're not saying I would like to do the handling of the read of books myself. Okay. Good morning to you in India, Mumbai, India, and Raji. Good morning to you as well. Okay. Now, where we were last time at the end, we were saying like, oh yeah, well let's just have a look at this, and I was trying to sort of not do this because this is what I want to cover today. What we have is in the on function, when we register a handler for the on event, okay, which is different to the before and the after, which we'll come to later. This function gets passed two arguments, okay, and we want to capture those two arguments in two different parameters: the request and also next. Now, what does that mean? Before we have a look at what that means, let's use it, which was what we did, or what we tried to do last time, okay, handling read of books, and what we did was call next, okay, because the next that we get is a function. Okay, so let's think about, in fact, let's think about next as a function without thinking about the other parameter, the other argument that we get passed for this parameter. So we're going to specify the name of the first parameter as an underscore, and I knew I was going to do this. So what I've got here as well is a little reference. If you're wondering why people use underscores as function parameter names, there's a really good question and answer on Stack Overflow for that. Okay, so have a look at that. But basically, it's a little bit of a placeholder to say, yes, well, you know, we've got to acknowledge this parameter because we got positional parameters, comma separated positional parameters. So we've got to put a name for it, but that implies that I don't care about it. I'm not going to use it. Okay. Does that make sense? So that's what we did last week as well. So I wanted to explain that. Now, next is a function. And if you think about how certain classic mechanisms work. The one I always think about is the Apache web server, HTTPD, which is basically the web server that powered most of the web, as you know, in the early days. And the way that it worked is that a request came in and it started to handle a request, and you had a series of stacked handlers. Okay, so the request went through the handlers. And the first handler had a chance at handling that request, and it might have wanted to partially handle it, but then allow a subsequent handler to continue the handling of that request. So it would say, yeah, I'll do a little bit, and then I'll give it to the next handler. And the next handler might do the same thing. And then the handler after that might say, oh, actually, you know, I am the definitive final handler now. So I'm going to add my bit to handling this incoming request. That's sort of running the gauntlet through these handlers. Okay. And then that handler might say, that's it. No other subsequent handlers should be called. I'm the final arbiter on this particular request. So I'm not going to call next. I'm not going to allow any further progress through the stack of handlers. Okay. And then it would then return the response to the web request that was made, and it's all good. We have a similar sort of philosophy, approach, mechanism here. So basically, inside the CAP server, with this next function, we get given the next function as a handler, so we could start handling the request and then call next to say, well, you do the rest of it, okay? And that's sort of what's happening here. However, so we're basically saying, I would like the next handler in the series and the next handler in the series is sort of think about it as similar to what I just sort of described, and it will do the handling for us, okay, if we don't want to do it after all. However, as we can see here, it's still not working, okay? Why is it not working? Now, this is not, as it's still not working, i.e. we're still getting no data. Can anybody say in the chat why we're still getting no data? Now, I think, was it the subscriber or Matthias said right at the end last week, put in the chat why you think we're still getting no data, even though we're calling the next handler, okay, in the series, which should handle it for us, okay, which should provide the data. Put in the chat. Michael says, shouldn't the value of next be returned? Yes. And that's what I think a couple of folks said on the previous thing. So Nikhil says, does the handler function have to return the past in entities? Yes, well, this particular one, Nikhil, that's a really good question. So great answer from Michael. We'll look at that in a second. But Nikhil is saying, does the handler function have to return the past in entities? Yes, but in this particular handler function, which we registered against the on event, okay, or the on callback type, we don't get any data passed in, because effectively the on is you get the data, as in I want to get the data, okay? In the before or the after, yes, we get, well, sorry, let's talk about the after for now. With the after, we do get data passed in to say, here's the data bit that's been retrieved, but you want to you've registered this callback to add something to the data to enhance it, maybe in after scenario. So here's the data. So yes, the handler function has to return the past in entities in that context, but it's only, for example, the after function that gets past the entities, right? Does that make sense? Nikhil, let me know if that makes sense. But let's go back to what Michael says. Yes, we have to return the value of next. But why do we have to return the value of next? If we say here, return, it's not really, yeah, it's basically returning the result of calling next. Okay, perfect. Nikhil, thank you for answering that. That's brilliant. So Nikhil is saying a good example here, asking a great question in the chat and also acknowledging as well. So I know I'm not sort of talking nonsense. So if we save this now, all I've done is add a return statement. Okay, so we're loading file. So, and then this one's still waiting here, which is great. There we go. Now, why has that made a difference? Why has that made a difference? I'm going to tell you, that's actually nothing to do with CAP or the CAP server or CDS or anything. Why do you think that is? If we remove that again and save it, it breaks again, i.e. we don't get the goodness from this function that we were given as the second parameter in the callback when we were called. Okay, why is that? Well, maybe somebody's going to put it in the chat. Have a think about, and I think I might have put it in here. Yes, arrow function expressions. There we go. So ES6, ECMAScript 6 came out in Node.js, JavaScript quite a few years ago, and it brought with it a lot of beautiful things to JavaScript. It also brought in a lot of ugly things to JavaScript, including classes. And I'll say that again, it brought a lot of ugly things into JavaScript, including classes. However, one of the things it did bring in is this concept of arrow function expressions, or fat arrow functions. And a fat arrow function, basically, let's go here, is a really nice way of defining an anonymous function in a really succinct way. Can we illustrate this by doing a yeah, let's try this. If we go into here, let's open Node. If we have, for example, numbers equals 1, 2, 3. okay? If we say numbers map, okay, numbers dot map, and we want to do something to each of the numbers. So either we could say function, I think, x return x times 10, right? Like that. Let's see what happens. There we go. So, you know, we multiply each of the numbers by 10, right? But that's quite verbose. Okay, and when you start thinking about developing in JavaScript, in Node.js JavaScript, in this style, where you have a lot of callbacks, a lot of handlers, a lot of anonymous functions, the fat arrow function style, an arrow function expression, is a compact alternative to a traditional function expression. So this is a function expression. We could write this in a similar way. Sorry, we could write this in a different way using a fat arrow. Why do I call it fat arrow function? Because that's an arrow, right? That's an arrow. Make it a bit bigger. And that, to me, is a fat arrow. Okay, that's why I and other people call it a fat arrow function. Now, we could say numbers.map, and we'll use now, what's the official term? An arrow function expression. X times 10. There we go. Now, notice that as well as not having the function keyword, we don't have any return statement. We don't have any curly braces. We don't have a block. We could have a block, but if we put a block in there, as in a block constrained by curly braces, x times 10, right? Watch what happens. Undefined, undefined, undefined. If we put something in a fat arrow function style anonymous function definition, if we put something inside of a block like this, a brace enclosed block, we've got to use the return statement. Okay, and it says here, where does it say? I've even put it in the thing, I think. The braces can only be omitted if the function directly returns an expression. If the body has additional lines of processing, the braces are required, and so is the return keyword. Arrow functions cannot guess what or when you want to return. Okay, so let's just think about that and look at this again. So because we've put this in braces here, we've got to use the return statement. But if we, like that, right? But if we do it that way, no braces, we don't need a return statement. Basically, the evaluation of that expression is the thing that's returned. Now, let's think about that and go back to what we have here, right? So we've got our handler registration, the on handler registration for the read event of the books entity. And here is our function, our anonymous function definition. Okay, there is what I call the function signature. I don't really know what that's called, but basically the list of parameters. There's the fat arrow, and look, we've got a brace, which means that unless we use the return statement, nothing that's done in here is returned. So we're returning nothing, so we're getting nothing here. Does that make sense? So Sunny says, I am planning for practice cap M, but getting error in both BAS and VS. Can anyone help me here to fix the installation part? Sunny, I'm sure we can, but you need to supply a little bit more information, and probably it's better to ask that on the SAP community or in LinkedIn or somewhere, Stack Overflow, wherever. Ask it where you can supply some detail. Okay. So Carsten says, if you want to return a JSON object, you can put it in curly brackets, value colon X. Yes, for example, that you need to return exactly. I think there's also a syntax. If I wanted to say, I wanted to return an object like value X times 10, what Carsten's saying here, that is not really what we want. But I think there we go. If you can still have a braceless, a blockless expression, but if you enclose that expression, which in this case, in Carsten's example, you want to have an expression which returns an object with a single property, the key of which is value and the value of which is the x times 10, then you can put it in normal brackets and that still works. And it's still outside of, or not in this block style, brace block style syntax. Does that make sense? So Carsten Schlegel, okay, oh nice. So Helmut says, that's why I love this YouTube channel. We get this detailed information. Fantastic. But I'm also suddenly conscious, we're supposed to be doing back to basics, CAP, but it's really important, right? Because we're writing a lot of, we just love DJ wherever he is, heart. Oh, thank you, Marion. I love you too. I love you all. So V says, DJ explains the arrow expressions so brilliant. Fantastic. Well, I'm glad you're okay with this, because I think it's really important to understand what is going on. Now, let's just wrap this little bit of a digression. Digression? Me? Never. Let's wrap this little bit of a digression up by doing something a little bit interesting, hopefully. Let's remove this console log statement. We don't need that. It stands to reason, doesn't it, that, okay, if I say that, it's still going to return an empty entity set, value, open close brackets, okay. But knowing what we know now, let's put that on the same line for now. Knowing what we know now, if we were to remove the brace block in this anonymous function definition, this fat arrow function definition, like that, so all I've done is remove the brace, which removes the requirement for the return keyword. Save that. What do you think is going to happen? Oh, so okay. So I just was doing the thing that I think Michael is describing. If I glanced at it just then, okay, what are you saying? You theoretically could remove the braces and build a custom handler which just calls next with an implicit return. Question is why you would need that in a custom handler. Michael, you are on it like a car bonnet, as people say somewhere. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Anyway, so basically, I think what Michael is describing is exactly what we've just tried here. I mean, there's no reason we would do this apart from to sort of explore the juicy goodness of what the heck is going on here. So can you understand what's happening here? We are still calling next that we get past, but we're calling it and returning the result of calling it implicitly, because we're not, because we're using a fat arrow syntax without braces. Okay, right. What we could do, and this is crazy, but I think somebody said, Nicky asked that question, and it reminded me to. I'm gonna have to not drunk it. That coffee is so. I've got some water. Okay. It reminded me that just before moving on, because I want to move on to the maybe an after handler, and shall we do some debugging next? Just a toe in the water of debugging this to see what this parameter is. Okay, to have a look what we get past. We could read the documentation, yes, but we can also help ourselves by running stuff in debug mode and then looking at what we get. Okay, let me know if you want to do that, or let me know if you want to move on first of all to the after and start playing around with some data. Okay, if you don't say anything, then maybe we'll do the debugging first. I don't know, I'm just thinking aloud. But before we do that, let us do one more crazy thing. Okay, we could return, let's do this in braces, right? So let's do that. There, like that. Return like that. Okay, and in fact, because we're returning okay, we're returning something. What we're returning is actually an empty array, which is basically sort of going to confuse us because we get... So Kazati says, let's go for debugging. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Kazati. Thank you for confirming that. Because we're not using either this thing that we're not interested in, or we're not calling next. So actually, what we can do is go back to saying, well, yeah, maybe there are some things passed to this callback function, but we don't care. I don't want to capture anything. I don't want to specify any arguments to capture those parameters that passed. Sorry, I don't want to specify. I always think about what words to use. And in my brain, the things that appear here, those are what I call parameters. And the things that get passed and get captured by these parameters, by the calling function, by the calling thing, are the arguments. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. But anyway, so if we do that, we get that. Now, we could say something crazy. That. Okay. Now, what's happened? What the returning mechanism that then kicks in after we've sort of overridden the standard handling, it tries to sort of turn what we have supplied into the JavaScript object, the JSON, into the structure that sort of represents an entity set, which is an array of objects. Okay, so 1, 2, 3 is completely bonkers. Why would you return an array of numbers? So let's do this. Okay, so we could say return just 2 empty objects. And now we get 2 empty objects, and now we get it because we've put some empty objects there. If that makes sense. And let us explore the woods. It's like, let's explore the woods. I like that. And let's explore the woods, especially in Philadelphia. Fantastic. So can you see what we're doing here? So we are overriding the standard handler, right? Which is different to what we probably normally want to do. We normally want to just enhance or add bits to or modify stuff as it passes through the default handlers. And in that case, we want to use a before or an after. Mostly an after, because we want to enhance the data that's already been received. A before handler is more for maybe doing some specific checks to see whether the request should be handled in the first place or not. We'll come to that later. So we could even say here, return, what's the thing? ID. Tell you what, let's do this. Let's go to there and have another. Shall we have another thing here? Let's just go. This is especially for visas. Let's use compile to YAML db data. What's it called? db schema.cds. Okay, so we can see here that, where is it? Books has an ID. We could have just looked in the schema.cds, but that's boring. So we can see we've got an ID, a title, and an author thing. Okay, so the ID is a UUID, right? So why don't we say ID? Some UUID. I don't know. I'm just going to make something up. It's not a UUID, but then title, the title, and then what we do here in terms of in terms of what we need to think about in terms of the entity set that that we're returning data for is at the service level, not at the schema level. So let's have a look at the serve there, and here we see where is it? Let's have a look. It's quite hard to see in. Tell you what, let's do it. Let's not do it there. Let's do it. Let's get rid of that for a second, and let's go to here and open up main.cds, and then use this thing, which is part of the previous release. Why has it gone to EDMX? I don't know. To use a YAML, close that, and have a look at bookshop. Where is it? Bookshop or QMacro authors, bookshop orders, bookshop authors, bookshop books. There we go. We got their ID, title, author, and we could also say, for example, here, preview as SQL. There we go. So we've got here books bookshop.books, ID, title, author ID. So let's return that. Okay, let's do that. So let's return that and say title and then author ID 2. I don't know, I'm just making things up, right? Let's do that. This is completely crazy, but we don't learn this without trying things, right? So there, we sort of get an idea of, we wouldn't do this for real, but we can sort of see the thing that we have to return if we are going to handle this. And in fact, here's a really cool thing. How would we generate a UUID? If we wanted to generate UUID, that's quite interesting, I think. Let's just do that, for example. Oh, let's format it. There we go, perfect. I save that. Format. Let's just do. Let's just have some space here. There we go. There we go. Check it out. Crypto. I think we've used this. Get there we go. Crypto dot random UUID. I found this out because I've got somewhere Vic UUID. There we go. I wanted to have a little script which would generate me UUIDs, and we've used this in a previous episode. And the way I get that to work is I just use Node, and I use this crypto library, which is standard. You don't have to, install it with npm or anything, and you get that. So it's quite cool. So we can say that, do that there. Crypto.random UUID. Save that. And there we go. We get UUID. But, and this is the little bit of a opening a door as we're going along the corridor to say, hey, look in there. It's quite cool. We're just going to sort of, do that in passing. Check this out. CDS. We've already got the CDS constant here as the facade. CDS utils dot UUID. Check it out. So that's just a little glimpse through the door of some amazing sort of utility functions that we might probably want to use when we start developing a lot more custom stuff. Okay. Anyway, time to 8:47. What is going on? Right, let's do some debugging. And what we'll say here is, before we do anything else, no, we'll just leave that there because it's crazy. It's stupid. So let's leave that there and go back here and say, well, if we were, we got time. Why don't we say that, have a scenario where we say, well, we've got absolutely no idea what is going to get passed, how many parameters I need to specify. We know that we need to specify a parameter to capture the incoming request and maybe use that to work out how to implement a custom handler for that request and return some data. And we also get this next function. Okay, so those two things we know. But let's say we didn't know. How would you do it? The way I would do it is using, I think this came, talking for the S6, I think this came in with the S6 as well. Let me know in the comments if it did. The REST operator. Ooh. Sorry, that was a bit crazy. That was because I'm in normal mode. The REST operator, and then we'll have something like things, right? So it doesn't matter what it's called. Now, by convention, a lot of people, when they're using the REST operator like this, the parameter name that they use is the word REST. And what that means is the rest of the things that are passed. Okay. Now, has anybody used the REST operator? And also, does anybody know the difference between the REST operator and the spread operator, or the spread syntax? Because it's basically the same thing. It's 3 dots, and they sort of have the equal and opposite type of effect in my brain. So without trying to figure out this in theory, let's debug and do it sort of like, let's see what's going on. Okay. So this is what I would do. And the REST thing is basically saying, however many things get to me here, capture them in an array called REST. So let's put a debug thing. Click to add a breakpoint because people seem to want to go debugging, including me. And how do we debug? Well, we're running VS Code, which has some great support for debugging Node.js applications. But the magic that allows us to do what we're going to be doing is what we get. In fact, let's do this here, right? If I say in temp CDS init x, let's just call it x, right? And go into x, and if we have a look what's in there, we get a directory automatically initialized for us called .vscode, and that's a magic directory name that VS Code recognizes, obviously, right? And inside of there, we get a launch configuration, okay? And it's these launch configurations, it's like a VS Code thing that allows us to launch or start running, start executing stuff in different ways, in different modes. Now, we're not going to go into that, how that works and everything. However, the upshot of that means that because we've got this VS Code, .vscode directory in our project here, VS Code is all ready for us to say, oh, I would like to go to the run and debug. What's the word? Run and debug perspective. I know that's an Eclipse term, but this is what I call these different things here. Let's go to the run and debug perspective. And this CDS serve, that phrase there is exactly from that thing there, name of configuration. If he even says, look, appears, what's it say? Appears in the launch configuration drop-down menu. Right? So, where is it? There, CDS serve. There is the launch configuration drop-down menu. So let's do that. In fact, because we're going to be starting to serve this, to run the cap server, let's stop this cap server that we're running here. And let's also, let's leave that running, right? Let's leave that running. No, let's not do it, right? Let's get rid of that. Let's just nice and clean, okay? Have we saved that? No, we haven't saved that yet. Let's save that. And now let's start running. Check it out. Check it out. We get all sorts of crazy stuff here. We're not going to look at this right now because there's a million things to look at. And it's a little bit like, ah. So instead, let's put a breakpoint. Not here. I didn't mean to put it there. Actually, I meant to put it here. In fact, let's stop it. Let's do it again. Let's get rid of that and put a breakpoint in the console log first of all. Okay. So Marion says, I usually use a Node debug terminal. Somehow I don't like the run debug from VS Code. Yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. The main reason I'm doing it in VS Code is because, we have this facility provided to us on the plate by, the cap initialization mechanism. And, let's stick with VS Code for now. I actually quite like debugging using the Chrome, attaching a Chrome session to my Node.js process, which is quite cool. Another way, open JavaScript debug terminal in Visual Studio Code, and then you can see this watch. Exactly. Yeah. There's loads of different ways of debugging, but I'm super conscious that this is a back to basics, so let's just use the basic tools that we get here. That's all right. So I'll put a debug statement on the console log for I'm in the anonymous function. Right? Let's do that first. Let's run that again. And it stops a little bit early because it stopped here. So we could say, well, there's nothing really to say here. Console.log. Can we do that? XXX. Some kisses. There we go. Yeah, you can do that. Right, fine. Okay. But now, let's put a debug statement. Sorry, not a debug statement. A breakpoint. Let's put a breakpoint here. Okay. And then we're stopped at the moment. So let's continue over there. Right. And so it continues. The cap server continues to start up. Right. And it's ready. Now, we've not reached this breakpoint yet because we haven't made a call. So let's open the terminal and say curl local host 4004 odata v4 bookshop books. Okay, so we don't get a response. Look down there, it's not come back. It's not come back because we're now inside our callback function. It stopped on this breakpoint. So let's go back to the debug console and we could say, oh, let's just carry on. Okay. So that's continue. So that would continue and continuing executing from where we left off. However, let's examine now what is inside this rest parameter. We can just type in here rest, and we can see, let's make that a little bit bigger. Yeah, we can see here it's a little bit of a, if you're not used to it, it's like, what is that? But we can see that the debug console is telling us that the contents of this rest variable is an array of two things, two things, and open square brackets, close square brackets, it's an array. And check it out, it says that the first thing is an instance of an OData request. Maybe I take back a little bit what I said about classes, but maybe not, I don't know. No, anyway, let's not even go there. And the second thing is an italic F. What do you think that means? An F in italics? That tells me function. So let's expand that. So we can see that the 0th element in this array, of the rest array, is an OData request, the string representation of which effectively is read bookshop.books. Okay. And the second thing is an asynchronous function. Basically, that's this thing here, right? Right. And the asynchronous function is, sorry, not this thing here. It's the next function that we could, and we have been calling to say, just do the normal thing, right? Does that make sense? So we can see just by using the rest operator, which is this thing here, and and just saying anything that get passed. In fact, let's we're at 8:56. Oh my goodness me! Let's understand what this rest operator does. Let's continue first of all, so we can see we get the output there. There's the output. But let's stop it again. Right? Let's stop it. Make it a bit smaller again. No, not that small. And if we say, okay, well, all right, let's capture the request. Oops. And then whatever else I get sent, now let's put that into this rest variable. Or let's call it something else like other stuff, right? Save that and now run it again. What's going on? Oh, yeah, there we go. Are we running? Yes, we're running. And let's get rid of that breakpoint. We don't want that breakpoint. Let's continue. And then we'll ask for a request again. Oh, connection refused. What are we doing? Pause. What's going on? Debug console. Terminal. There we go. Fine, I was a bit too early. Right there. So now, request is this read thing here. So we can go into the debug console. Is that thing, read bookshop books. We'll look into more next time what that is. It's crazy good, right? Is that even English? But also then we have other stuff, right? So other stuff is now just an array with one thing in because it's just the rest of the stuff, right? And that's that function, that next function that we get passed, right? So that's how we find out what we get passed. And going back to something related to what Nikhil asked before, in an anonymous function that's registered as an on handler for, in this case, a read request of the books entity, we don't get any data passed in because, of course, it's an on handler. So it's our responsibility to actually do whatever we need to do to return the data, to generate the data, which is what we're doing here in a really stupid way. We don't get past the data. We will when we do an after handler, that's next time. What we get past is the most important thing that we need in order to fulfill our destiny, to replace the standard handler for the on. We get the request, we get the details of the request. So we could say request dot method get request dot, let's have a look, what else we got here? Query. And the query is some SQL, CQL, right? But we're not even going to go there because it's 8:59. Okay, Fantastic. So thank you so much for joining. Thank you for your interaction and everything. Oh, Visa says, I really like the spread operator in ES6. It's magic. Helps me a lot when I do JavaScript, TypeScript. I find myself using the spread operator more often than the rest operator. That's cool. Main thing is we know about what it is and we know it's useful for figuring out what are we getting past here in this handler function. Anyway, thanks for joining. Have a great Friday. I won't see you next week because I'm away. And then we've got Kevin and Nora, I think, doing their retrieval augmented generation stuff on live stream same time. But we'll see you soon, and look out for the next event on LinkedIn, YouTube, whatever. Okay, bye for now.